Well, y'all, I lost the battle between my husband and me. I gave in to him and I allowed him to make love to me. And I'm telling you, it was a flawless victory. Well, let me tell you how it all went down. Okay, so some things began to change with our band. Okay, we still haven't given ourselves to the whole choir, you know what I'm saying? We barely participated. I mean, just enough so the elders won't call for us to be beheaded. I'm just joking about the beheading, but they did threaten to stone us. Anyway, we all viewed the choir the same way. Why participate with a group that was being led by a tyrant? Adolf Pam. I would never give her my voice. She didn't deserve it. Plus, the choir was all she had. I mean, it made her feel good to be the best singer there. Hell, what did I care? I had nothing to prove. She could have it. All that being said, because of the large group of people that showed up the other day, we've lost the use of Ema Jacqueline's auditorium for choir rehearsal. Of course, the next best place for us all to meet was my living room, which was a huge open space. Now, this is a good thing and a bad thing. Bad because whereas before I just went to choir rehearsal and bided my time till it was time for me to leave, now I had to put up with Pam where I laid my head. However, the good thing that came out of this was all the instruments ended up finding a home in my living room, which was how the jam sessions end up being born. This was me and my band's time to let our gift go free. There were no tyrants, no one that hated to see us achieve further than they, no one that wrapped their hands around our throat and tried to hold us down. And our sound began to attract people. First, believe it or not, Monroe. He would sit on the floor in the corner, his big body stretched out in a relaxed pose, the big wolf with the black streak right by his side. And during our sessions, that white film was removed from his eyes. It didn't matter who was singing or if the band was just playing, which in itself was amazing. Then the judge started coming by when he heard us playing. Now, 9 times out of 10, Gina Ya and little Yaakov was already here. So he'd come and he'll take a seat on the floor and sit back and relax, allowing our sound to soothe. Then JD showed up to listen. JD, who had been the next best skilled warrior here under Monroe, until the man named Justice showed up. JD had even began bringing his Isha when they heard us rehearsing. And a few of the choir members who Pam didn't have wrapped around her hands came, and even 1 or 2 of the elders began to show up. Now, the biggest surprise, though, was when the man named Justice and his Isha, Floppy Hat, showed up to listen. Floppy Hat spent most of her time staring at Monroe, and I couldn't quite figure it out. She didn't look at him like a woman who was attracted to him, and Justice didn't take me for the type of man that would just sit there and allow that anyway. She looked at him as if she was studying him. Now, I'll get back to you guys a little later and tell you what that was all about. But for now, I'm attempting to explain to you how I lost the Battle of Wales. Another good thing about our jam sessions was, for some reason, Monroe was attracted to them more than sitting in his chair staring into the fire. So that was a blessing because he was doing that less and less. Now, the trouble began during one of the jam sessions that had drawn a pretty big crowd. Our living room was packed with people who sat lounging or relaxing listening to us rehearse. Monroe sat in his regular spot over in the corner, slowly rubbing his hand through the wolf's fur. The other wolves had taken to hunting during this time because having them all here at once made everybody that wasn't used to them uncomfortable. so Monroe sent them away. Of course, Abir never really left his side. However, the people here still gave Monroe his space and even kept a leery eye on him. He made quite a sight with his white gaze and white hair, that tattoo prominent on his neck. And of course, now that everybody knew it was my name, I was faced with tons of questions about how we knew each other and what he was like as a boy. Now, although people was very curious about him, most of them were still too afraid to approach him and speak to him. The only few outside of the warriors that communicated with him was Pam, of course, Ima Jacqueline, the judge, and little Jacob. Even the elders didn't speak directly to him. They sent either JD or Malachi to relay their messages to him. Up until this last gem section, I felt hopeful because it seemed that he was on his best behavior and the people were starting to come around. Well, they were until this last gem section. Okay. And I know you're saying, go ahead and spit it out already. Okay, so this is what happened. The session started off pretty chill. Just us all sitting back listening to a piece that Jazz and Bass had put together. Guinea had found some wild mint growing close to her house, and she made this big batch of unsweetened iced tea that was quite refreshing. She added another herb that I didn't recognize, but that was nothing new for Gina. She did stuff like that all the time. And so everybody's sitting back, sipping on this tea, listening to the sound, when Heman stepped up to the mic. I settled back ready to enjoy myself because Heman had a powerful, beautiful voice, and it does soothe me. However, as soon as he began singing, I nearly spit my tea out. He starts singing So I Can Have You Back by Joe. I don't know if you guys remember that. It's an oldie, but a goodie. Now, as he's singing, he really gets into the song and starts singing it better than Joe. Of course, he added his own riffs and stops to it, but my goodness, he held that room spellbound. When he gets to the part that says, I hope he makes the biggest mistake, the unforgivable that makes your heart break. I hope you tell him sorry's just not enough, and it goes from good to bad so that I can have you back. He looks directly at me, and it's no secret to anybody that's watching that he's now singing to me. Then as he gets into the song, he walks towards me. I look at Monroe out the side of my eye, and I see this smirk on his face as he's watching this display. Now, this is not the good smirk. It's the one he wears before he does something violent. I turn back to look at Heman, and I'm trying to get him the signal to stop with my eyes, right? But he doesn't. He goes down to his knees in front of me, and he's belting out this lyrics. The love you give to me, I'm using it to breathe. I know you think I'm wrong, but it keeps me holding on to you. It keeps me holding on to you. Now, there is pure shock on the people in the room faces. Even the judge's mouth has dropped, cause it ain't no secret who my husband is. When Heman is done, he stands and take a bow like he didn't just bring the room to a screeching halt. I mean, by this point you can hear crickets. Everybody is staring at him like he has just lost his damn mind, okay? And then loud clapping comes from Monroe's corner, as with the grace of the animal by his side, he comes to his feet. He has this huge grin on his face that nobody mistook for kindness. Still clapping, he walks toward the front where we all sitting. Now, at this point, the look on Heman's face has changed and he realizes he's in danger. I stand. But see, my good sense is telling me not to step in between these two men. Monroe doesn't stop clapping until he's standing in front of Heman, right? The look in his eye have changed. challenge, and he's not even pretending to be civil anymore. The wolf at his side drops low, staring at Heman with his deadly gaze growling low in his throat, okay? Everybody in the room is holding their breath, waiting to see what Monroe is going to do. Now, I'm surprised Malachi hasn't got up to intervene, like he did the other day between Monroe and Justice.
You got a pretty voice, girly boy.
Monroe's deep voice cut through the room, reminding me of sandpaper.
I wonder though, how will it sound once I cut out your tongue?
My eyes wide. Damn it, all the progress we've made for nothing. Everybody once again is looking at him like he's a monster. Heman visibly swallows. His own eyes widen.
Please, sir, don't cut out my tongue, sir.
Monroe held his head back and laughed. I mean, roared with laughter, causing us all to jump. Okay? But none so high as Heman. Then before any of us could blink an eye, Monroe's powerful arms shot out, wrapped around Heman's neck, snatching the poor man off his feet and into one of those playful headlocks, you know, the ones you see brothers giving brothers, except it wasn't playful, okay? My husband looked at me with a huge smile on his face.
I like this guy. He's alright,
he said with his mouth. But his muscled arm was squeezing the breath out of my friend. Monroe, I said very calmly, laying my hand on his arm. Baby, you gotta let him go. By this point, Heman's face is beet red and his eyes is rolling into the back of his head. He can't breathe, baby, I told him very gently. Monroe's eyes got real serious.
Good. I want him to know what death feels like, because that's exactly what's going to happen the next time he disrespects me.
Then he lets him go. Poor Heman hit the floor, gasping for breath, greedily drawing it into his starved lungs. He looked up at a now frowning Monroe, who stood over him menacingly.
See you in training tomorrow, chump.
My husband spat at him before he took my hand.
Come. It's time for you to sing for me, songbird.
He said so low that only I heard him as he gently guided me out the door. We walked past all the people who sat still staring between us and Heman, who lay on the floor clutching his throat. The big wolf walked ahead of us. The white film was back over Monroe's eyes and he was now using adversary to see. Without saying a word, he guided me by my hand down to the beach and then back up through some cliffs that led out in a little private section of the beach I had never been. Back up through some more cliffs that looked out over part of the water I had never seen. The wolf sat down on his hind legs looking out at the water. Monroe let go of my hand and turned to look at me with that smirk on his face. Not the one he had just given Heman, the one that broke me down on the inside. I lifted an eyebrow when he raised his arms and pulled his shirt over his head. His muscles, chest flexed in a way that spoke of the power his body held. Goodness gracious, this man, shirtless, was just... Anyway, he pointed over the cliff into the water.
Do you see that area?
I looked to where he was talking about and was amazed to see a section of the water that appeared to be glowing blue. I nodded, yeah.
That's where we're going. Can you keep up?
He asked as he kicked off his boots. I folded my arms. You say that like it's a challenge. He shrugged.
You know, I know Lion was proud of his little princess's progress in battle, but what her stamina like?
I reached up and I pulled my shirt over my head and then I kicked off my boots. He and I stood facing each other. He in only his black cargo pants, and me in my green cargo pants and black bra. He let out a whoop in his throat before he suddenly flipped backwards off the cliff and into the water. With a huge grin on my face, I ran and I jumped off behind him. Before my body hit the water, I took a deep breath. He said stamina was needed, which meant we were diving. I followed him as he swam lower towards the bright blue light. now curious to see what it was. He disappeared under the mountain and I followed. We swam a good distance with nothing but mountain overhead. This was not a dive for someone with weak nerves easily given to panic. Right when my lungs began to burn, we emerged in a pool inside the mountain, and all the remaining breath was sucked from my body at what I was seeing. This place couldn't be real. It looked like something from another world. "Dear Yah," I cried, turning in the water to look around at the cave. It was covered with some kind of bright blue rocks that lit the grotto up in a way I had never seen before. Slowly, I climbed out, thunderstruck by what I was seeing. It looked as if someone had lit thousands of blue flame candles. The sound of the waves were coming from somewhere that I couldn't see. Even the smell in this place was unlike anything I had ever smelled. If I had to compare it to something, it would be the honeysuckle plant that my mom let grow up the wall outside of her greenhouse at the gym. I turned to look at Monroe, but came up short when I saw that he wasn't there. Slowly, I began to walk further into the cave. The further back I walked, the smoother the cave floor became, until I found myself standing on very smooth stone, so smooth that it almost felt soft. And there was a small flow of warm water that washed over my feet. I tried to see where it came from, but I couldn't.
There go my songbird, the prettiest brown in all the town.
Startled, I turned to see Monroe leaning against the cave wall with one foot propped up behind him. He had his hands in his pocket, and I was surprised to see that he was looking at me through eyes that can see. "You can see me." I don't know if it was a question or a statement. My emotions were a bit tangled right now. With a sexy grin on his face, he slowly nodded. And it was then I realized I was standing in front of him in my bra. Over the past couple weeks, I had gotten comfortable walking around him as I pleased because he couldn't see me. But now his eyes were raking over my body, leaving fire in their wake. "How is that possible?" I asked. He shrugged, standing up off the wall, and slowly began to walk toward me.
I don't know what it is about this place, but I can see here, and in color. Maybe like your voice is set apart.
My eyes raked over him, the way he was doing me. His muscled chest and stomach glistened in the intimate blue light. The light made his white hair and the white speck in his eyes glow. That coupled with the angry scar across his cheek and that tattoo of my name, it was too much. I was only human. There was no warm-blooded woman that could have resisted him right now. He came to a stop in front of me, looking down at me with his outer-worldly gaze.
You wanted my eyes. You have them. Now, give in to me.
And then he was kissing me. I stood on my toes, wrapping my arms around his neck. How could I not give in to him? He and I will never get this moment in time back. It was truly a gift from above. I moaned my surrender and he deepened the kiss, wrapping his strong arms around me, nearly lifting me off my feet. Very gently, he laid me back against the smooth stone that was surprisingly very warm and soothing against my back. The water rushed around my head and back in a massaging pattern. As he slowly undressed me, his hungry gaze devoured my body.
Ty, baby, you're even more beautiful than I remembered.
I smiled as he touched me with hands that shook slightly.
You don't know how long I waited for this day. I feel like I waited my whole life.
Slowly, he lowered his mouth and kissed my stomach.
I would have waited as long as it took.
I closed my eyes and surrendered to Monroe's very talented mouth. Its warmth, coupled with the warm flow of the water, was my undoing. Yes, I sung for him in that cave. I sung his name over and over again. As he made love to me, taking from me his fill, showing me how long he hungered. I filled that cave with my screams and cries. That day, in that moment, in that cave that was of this world but wasn't, he and I made beautiful music. Malachi lay in his bed and watched as Ginia brushed her hair. He loved her hair. It was thick and strong like her, and he loved watching her braid it at night. He once asked her why she braided it every night, and she told him that if she didn't, she would break the comb the next day. He watched her put that oil that smelled like coconut in her palm before rubbing it in her hair. Then she braided the long, thick strands into 2 braids that came to rest in the center of her back. It was amazing, her hair. When braided, it laid down obediently. But when she took those braids out, it rose up and out proudly like only a royal crown could. Gina smiled as she braided her hair. She thought it was cute that he watched her do this every night. He lay in bed looking so handsome in only his pajama bottoms, his strong muscled chest beckoning her, although she would never tell him she preferred it over her pillow. Some nights she'd wake up in the middle of the night to find that she'd somehow ended up crossing the bed to rest her head against his warm chest. She had gotten so used to sleeping in the bed with him, she couldn't imagine laying in the bed without his big body next to hers. When she was done, she walked into the bathroom and came back out with the liniment she had made for him. "I made something for you." He looked up startled, placing his hand on his chest.
You made something for me?
Chuckling at his dumbfounded expression, she nodded. It was a shame. The man was so used to her being mean to him that he was completely floored by her act of kindness. She told him.
What is it?
Lifting her hand, she showed him the crude-looking bottle of liniment. She had noticed that after he worked long days like this one, he favored his back. When he sat down, he groaned, and when he stood, sometimes he groaned. She knew earlier on that she could do something about it, but she had stubbornly held out. Now she just felt bad. Every day, he brought her home something that made her smile. Sometimes it was seeds, sometimes flowers. The other day he brought her home an apple, and the only thing she could do was stand there and cry. Confused, he asked her what was wrong, and she explained to him how the apple was her mother and brother's favorite thing in the world to eat, and that she didn't know if her mom was alive, although Ty had told her that the preacher told her that Dawid was. Malachi wrapped her in his arms and comforted her, telling her that if it was Yah's will, his servants will meet up again. And what a day that would be. After that day, he steered away from bringing home apples, but he brought home garden tools. He'd even helped her prepare a small patch of land in the back of the kitchen for her to plant a small garden. The least she could do is help soothe him of his muscle stiffness. She knew for a fact that he had a very stressful job, and he carried all his tension in his back. The man was literally carrying the weight of this whole place on his shoulders. However, when he saw what she held, he frowned.
What is it?
A liniment I made from crushed cayenne pepper and some wild chamomile I found growing a little distance away.
See, it's just that when you told me you had something for me, I didn't imagine it to be lotion. I mean, look, don't get me wrong. Some people like lotion and things like that for a present, mostly women. But hey, it's the thought that count, right?
She looked at him with a very smug look on her face, knowing in a matter of seconds she was going to make him eat those words. You see, she had been taught by her daughter Safia, who's the most talented healer in the whole world. And her daughter always told her that she was her very best student. Before you make up your mind about my gift, why don't you turn over and let me show you what this lotion can do? He grinned before he turned over to his stomach, laying his head on his muscled arm. She took in his beautiful chocolate muscled back as she climbed up on the bed to straddle him. 2 months ago, she would have never had the nerve to straddle him like this. But sleeping in the bed with him every night had caused her to develop a certain level of comfort around him. She put a big glob of the liniment in her hand and began to massage it in his back. First came the burn. He began to squirm.
Whew, baby, that's a little hot, huh?
She said with a grin on her face. Don't be no crybaby, she teased him. He chuckled, putting his head down in his hand. This particular formula burned like the dickens at first. She lowered her head and gently blew across his back. And then came the cool. He moaned.
Oh my goodness.
His words were muffled as he began to see the benefit of this particular gift. Yahuah taught her that when using your hands to heal through massage therapy, to always accompany it with the words of life, which in itself is all the healing to one who believes need. Your hands then become just its assistant. As she massaged the muscles on his back that was very tense, she began to speak. Watch, therefore, because you do not know the day nor the hour in which the son of Adam is coming. For it is like a man going from home, who called his own servants and delivered his possessions to them. And to one he gave 5 talents, and to another 2, and to another 1, to each according to his own ability, and went from home. And he who had received the 5 talents went and worked with them, and made another 5 talents. In the same way, he with 2 also gained 2 more. But he who had received the 1 went away and dug it in the ground, and hid the silver of his master. And after a long time the master of those servants came and settled accounts with them. And he who had received the 5 talents came and brought 5 other talents, saying, Master, you delivered to me 5 talents. See, I have gained 5 more talents besides these. And his master said to him, Well done, good and trustworthy servant. You were trustworthy over a little. I shall set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master. Then he who had received 2 came and said, Master, you delivered to me 2 talents. See, I have gained 2 more talents besides them. His master said to him, Well done, good and trustworthy servant. You were trustworthy over little. I shall set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master. And the one who had received the 1 talent also came and said, Master, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you have not sown, and gathering where you have not scattered seed. And I, being afraid, I went and I hid your talent in the ground. So you have what is yours. And his master answering said to him, You wicked and lazy servant, you knew that I weep where I have not sown, and gather where I have not scattered seed. Then you should have put my silver with the bankers, and at my coming I would have received back my own with interest. Therefore, take away the talent from him, and give it to him who possesses 10 talents. For to everyone who possesses more shall be given, and he shall have overflowingly. But from him who does not possess, even that which he possesses shall be taken away. And throw the worthless servant out into the outer darkness. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. By the time Gina had finished reciting the words of the master, Malachi was out. Smiling, she leaned over him and she began to speak softly in his ear. The work you do, my king, is tough, but the master has trusted you with this job. You are doing so well. I pray the master will be pleased with your work. Keep fighting, warrior. And then she climbed off his back, and after checking on little Jacob one more time, turned off their bedroom light, and snuggled into bed next to Malachi, strong warrior of Yah.